What is up, everybody? Welcome to Revv Time. This is going to be more of a almost vlog style video in that I'm not going to do like a ton of playing. This isn't a big like equipment comparison or anything like that. But I have received over the years a lot of questions about how I came to settle on Celestion speakers, and more specifically the Vintage 30. Because, you know, the Vintage 30 is kind of a weird speaker. I think it came out, I want to say it was 1980 or something like that. And it was really kind of a higher powered answer to, well, you know, the G12Ms and speakers like that. And it was actually considered to be a little bit more almost neutral. But to me, it wasn't neutral at all. And I think it was like that for a lot of people because it had kind of a, which is what I dug. It had and has kind of a more punchy upper mid, kind of an accentuated upper mid, almost like lower high frequency, you know. But the mids themselves are actually a little bit more nasally, which was kind of not very desirable to a lot of players. And for the most part, it's weird because it's not to me either. I don't like super nasally stuff, but somehow I just gravitated to the V30. I mean, the first speakers I was really into was back when I was first playing Mesa Boogie amps, and that would have been Mark II-C Plus at the end of that into the Mark III amps. And that was kind of my first experience with those big EV12Ls. And there is zero British about that speaker. And speaking of very neutral, is pretty much whatever went in those things is exactly what came out. You weren't going to get a lot of you know, character from the speaker itself, which was fine because you drug it out of the amps and the preamps and all that stuff. You know, it was so cool. But as time went on, I started to want some character from the speaker, and that's when I kind of gravitated towards Celestions. And of course, you know, the G12M, the 20 watt, and I think it became a 25 watt later on. And I'm no like hardcore aficionado. I'm not going to be telling you guys cone numbers and things like that. But that was the first speaker I tried, and what I liked about it is it had smoother mids, which was cool, that were definitely present. The super high highs would kind of roll off, which I liked, but what I didn't like about that speaker is, especially using somewhat higher wattage amplifiers, it would compress too much for me. I like speakers to sound a bit more immediate, and that was kind of my struggle, or not sound, but feel a bit more immediate, and that was kind of my struggle with that. And I'm not saying I don't like that, but it's still what you know, eventually pushed me towards, you know, the straight up, the Vintage 30. Honestly, another speaker that I really like is the Creamback for sure. Matter of fact, I have one in this cabinet here. I would say that's the only other speaker that I would gravitate towards when it comes to kind of my favorite Celly speakers. It's a different sound. It's a different top end. It's definitely kind of more of a high-powered speaker. I think that's what I was figuring out is I wasn't as into lower wattage speakers because they would compress too much. Now that being said, you know, the Alnico series speakers, like a 15-watt Alnico Blue, can be absolutely brilliant in like a lower wattage like EL84 or 6V6 driven amplifier can sound killer. And that's the great news, is it's not super loud and it's going to compress just right, without, blowing up, on those lower wattage amplifiers. So it's this is to each his own. And of course, there's Weber did some great stuff in, like, especially like in little Princeton amps and champs. The Weber stuff is killer. Of course, Fane with high watt, those are great. Jensen, of course, what was the P12N or something like that, that was in the high powered Tweed Twins. It's a great sounding speaker. So it really is to each his own. But for me, the V30, especially doing sessions, I just found that on the mic, I was able to fit better in tracks if I was using a Celly speaker like a V30 or maybe a Creamback. And another thing about a V30, if you own like I don't care if it's a reissue deluxe or even an old deluxe like Blackface Deluxe, because the mids were so present in V30s, if you wanted to kind of wake up your Blackface, that's the first upgrade you should always do, is just get a Celly Vintage 30 and mash that thing in there, and you're probably going to be really happy because the amp's going to sound broader, it's going to sound more efficient, it's still going to feel pretty good, but there's going to be some mids there that are really cool. Now what I can do, just for giggles, if I can keep from screwing it up, like right now we're on like a crunch tone. I think I'm going to switch to a clean tone. And I'm going to call up the cabinet I've been just playing on. Is it's a 1x12 cab. It's a Revv 1x12 cabinet in the 2 notes IRs with a Celestion V30. So I just switched to a clean tone. And just so you can hear the difference, now this is the thing with clean to crunch tones, the difference is going to be more dramatic on a crunch tone. But just so you can kind of hear what's going on, here is a V30 in an open back 1x12 cabinet with a 57, Shure 57 and a ribbon mic, a 121. The mics are dead straight across. In other words, I'm not boosting the 57 or cutting the Royer. Both are close mic'd, nothing is off axis, and I won't change anything between these two speakers. We're going to go between this speaker and we're going to then switch, same cab, same setup, to Creamback. So here's the Celestion, the V30. Now we'll switch to the Creamback. Back to the V30. Creamback. So what I'm hearing between the two is, to me, the Creamback actually feels a little more compressed, at least within this scenario. The Creamback has a little bit more kind of chimey top end, less mid highs. Low end is a little bit maybe softer, but I think for a clean tone, it's pleasing, especially that top end. Go back to the other speaker, the V30. See, there I'm hearing more of that. I don't want to say it's a honky mid, but there is more of a mid presence, and it's a softer top end. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the sound I was on and we'll do the same exact comparison. And you're going to find that, and we'll start with the V30 and do the same thing. You're going to find that it's going to be a more pronounced difference between the two. So we'll start with the V30. Okay, now check it out. Here's the creamback. V30. Creamback. Now you can really hear that difference. For me, this is more pleasing. It's fatter in the mids, not quite as what I would call kind of papery sounding up top. Not that that's a bad thing, but for me, I'm leaning towards this for like this type of kind of low gain vintage crunch thing. Now there is something about that creamback that kind of screams Celestion and screams kind of more vintage sound. And it's a great sound. It just depends on what you want. But it's crazy how much more present the difference is when you're on a crunch tone as opposed to a clean tone. Creamback, V30. So yeah, I just wanted to do this, to kind of, once again, talk about how I arrived at really just kind of digging V30s. I would love to know if you guys are, Celestion, especially if you're aficionados, but even if you're not, if you just like Celestions like me, which ones do you use? Were you more into like the ones from the 80s and 90s, like the leads and speakers like that? Because I didn't really dig those as much. I still kind of went back to V30 creamback and probably, like a G12M. But let me know, what Celestions you're digging. If you're not digging Celestions, then what are you using? And that's IRs included. IRs have gotten so good these days. So yeah, if there's an IR cab that you've been really digging, let me know in the comments what you guys are using. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.